Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom can be a pretty tough game. Just like Breath of the Wild before it, it introduces a lot of brand new game mechanics to the series that might overwhelm a brand new player. Breath of the Wild, of course, introduced the weapons, bows, and shields that have durability. If you use them too much, they actually break, and you have to find new weapons. This carries over to Tears of the Kingdom as well as some other brand new mechanics like Recall, Ultra Hand, Ascend, and Fuse. Now, after playing Tears of the Kingdom for a number of hours, I have to say that I kind of gathered a few tips that really might help new players with this game. And these tips have definitely helped me along my playthrough, so I'm hoping that these will help you as well. Now, just as a warning, I'm going to be going through some gameplay stuff, some story stuff, so if you don't want to be spoiled in the game at all, you may want to skip this video until you've played the game a little bit. But if you're not worried about spoilers at all, we'll go straight ahead right into the tips. Now for tip number one, I personally, in any open world game like this, I go around to try to find the most fast travel points I can on the map and kind of just try to unlock the whole map. This is the first thing that I do in every open world game, and it helps a lot when you get these quests where they're like, hey, you need to go to this town that's, halfway across the map. You can just kind of fast travel over there and find that town instead of having to trek all the way over there every time you get a new quest to find a new place. I've also found that creating this fast travel network will get you a lot of the Lights of Blessing, which you can use the prayer statues to upgrade your hearts and your stamina, which is really useful. As well as you're going to find a bunch of places in this game, fight a bunch of enemies, and you're going to end up getting a lot of high level gear. Now the best way to start this is to start unlocking these sky towers. So this is the view of my map. I've unlocked all the sky towers, which opens up the entire map, and after you get all the sky towers, or even in between, you can start doing the shrines around the map. Now if you see all the diamonds on the map, those diamonds are marked spots where I know that there's a shrine, but I haven't been to that shrine yet. And I know there's a shrine there, and it's actually for a tip later on in this video, so stick around for that. Now you want to make sure that when you do find these shrines and you unlock them as fast travel points, that you're going to want to actually go into the shrine and complete them as well. Now this does add a lot of time to your game, but you want those Lights of Blessings that you get at the end of the shrine, so you're going to want to go to each and every shrine, go into them, and complete the puzzles. Now tip number two, after you've kind of created this nice fast travel network where you have all the sky towers and a bunch of shrines to fast travel to, my first suggestion is to complete the Wind Temple as soon as possible. Now if you've gone through and completed a bunch of these shrines, then you have pretty high level equipment and you actually probably get to the Wind Temple pretty easily. Now I'm not going to give out any tips for the Wind Temple specifically, but there is something that you get with the Wind Temple that is very useful. Before you complete the Wind Temple, you get this companion character, Tulin. He's kind of vital to the story. And upon completing the temple, you actually get this thing called the Vow of Tulin. Each of the sages from these temples give you this vow item, and it allows you to kind of pull up a virtual companion of that sage. And I'd say Tulin's is probably the best. And you get this really awesome ability called Wind Gust that really helps you along when trying to travel really far in the air. Now here I am at the Wind Temple. Now I have Tulin right here, or at least the virtual Tulin, and I'm going to show you exactly what the Wind Gust looks like. Alright, as you jump off this platform here, just pull up the paraglider, and you can press A for gust, and look how far he shoots you with this Wind Gust. Now Wind Gust is actually really useful when you get into one of the sky towers and it shoots up into the sky, and you're paragliding somewhere and you want to get to like one of the sky islands that's pretty far away. Wind Gust can really push you along, and it recovers quickly enough to where you can use it a few times before you run out of stamina. And now every one of these sages has one of these vows. They have these virtual companion characters. You can have a bunch of them with you at a time, and they each do their own special thing that's pretty useful. In my opinion, Tulin's is like the best one, and it's definitely the best one to get first. Alright, tip number three. Simmered fruit is your best friend. Now cooking is such a complicated mechanic in Tears of the Kingdom, just like it was in Breath of the Wild, and you can make so many crazy dishes with all of these different abilities and different power-ups. For me, simmered fruit is the best bang for your buck thing that you can make with the most common items that you find everywhere. Now what I'll often make is simmered fruit with just apples, so I'll select 5 apples. You throw 5 apples into the frying pan here, you're going to get the most basic simmered fruit, and that's basically something that will heal you 5 hearts. But if you want to up the ante a little bit, you can add other things like golden apples. So if you have any golden apples, you can do 4 regular apples plus a golden apple. And when you throw that into the frying pan, you'll get the same simmered fruit dish, but as you see here, instead of just 5 hearts, it's 10 hearts. So a regular simmered fruit dish from the very beginning, giving you 5 hearts of healing. If you don't have that many hearts to begin with, 5 hearts is plenty. And you find apples everywhere, so you'll definitely have an abundance of apples. So if you make a bunch of these simmered fruits, you'll be able to heal yourself a lot in the very beginning. But something that heals an amazing amount is if you do 4 Hylian tomatoes and a golden apple. Now this makes a regular simmered fruit dish as well, but this is 14 hearts instead of the 10 hearts, which is quite an improvement. Hylian tomatoes are a little less common than the regular apples. If you have a lot of Hylian tomatoes, you can make a lot of these dishes, and 14 hearts is a really good amount of healing when you're much farther in the game. Simmered fruit is actually a really versatile dish, so if you throw in some other fruits like the spicy pepper, it actually gives you a low level cold resistance so that you'll be able to walk around in colder weather without having to buy equipment, which is really great early on because buying the warm weather or cold weather equipment gets really expensive and you don't have the opportunity to make a lot of rupees really early on. Now, speaking of boosting your attributes with items, you can actually use the fuse mechanic to boost your attributes by adding things to a shield or a sword. And this is actually my 4th tip for this video. You can actually fuse a sapphire to your shield or a ruby to your shield to help you in warm or cold weather areas, respectively. And by fusing one of these gems to your shield and equipping the shield, it acts like you're equipping a piece of armor that has that attribute. So let's say you're going through a really cold weather area and you only have like a pair of pants that help out with cold weather. Just fuse a ruby to your shield and you get that other notch of cold resistance for those areas that are unbearably cold. Now this tip may not be super helpful early on because rubies and sapphires and gems like that are kind of hard to come by early on in the game, but later on when you have a bunch of these and you don't necessarily have the proper equipment yet, you can fuse them to your shield and it really helps out. Now tip number 5 is to explore the depths as early as possible. Now this kind of coincides with my first tip, which is to create a fast travel network as early as possible because in the depths there's fast travel points there as well. Now in the depths, the fast travel points are called light routes. They don't give you the opportunity to get Lights of Blessing to upgrade your health or your stamina at all, but they light up the depths to make it easier to see where you're going, and they do create a fast travel point. And something really cool, something that's really awesome to learn early on, is that the light routes in the depths and the shrines on the ground level match up. So if you find a shrine on the ground level, you could snap your cursor on the map to it, hit down on the D-pad, and then create a map marker in the depths, and in that spot will be a light route. And what's really cool is the name of the light route is just the name of the shrine backwards. And so if you find light routes, and you could do the same thing, you snap your cursor to the light route, and if you go to the ground level and you don't already have a shrine unlocked there, place a map marker in that exact spot. Because even if there's not a shrine perfectly visible on the ground level, there's going to be one in like a cave or somewhere nearby, and it's going to be at that exact point. This tip has really helped me with the depths, and the depths scared me so much that I didn't go through them very much at all for a lot of my playthrough. But knowing this, and if you've already created a network of shrines on the ground level, you can actually create a map network of light routes so you know exactly where all the light routes are going to be from the shrines that you've already found. And now another tip for the depths, I'm just going to give this one to you for free without giving it a number. Any water that's on the ground level is an impassable area in the depths. So if you're trying to get from one light route to another and you know that like a river goes in between them, that means that you can't go directly from one to the other. You have to find a way around it or a way down into the depths nearby that's already across the river. And so there's a bunch of these like chasms on the map, and you can see them. They're just like little black circles with like the gloom around them. Those are the areas that you can go down into the depths from. If you see a light route here and a light route here, and you know that there's a river going through, you know there's going to be a chasm over here where you're going to have to go through so that you can get that next light route because it's going to be blocked off. And now one of the main reasons that I say you should go through the depths as early as possible is there's actually some main quest stuff that you go down there for, and you get an ability called auto build. And now auto build will let you, essentially exactly how it's named, automatically build something using Ultra Hand. So if you've already built some kind of vehicle or some kind of structure to get you to a higher spot, once you have auto build, it'll actually start to save those things, and you can build them without actually needing the materials. It'll just use whatever zononite that you have in your inventory. And there's actually some really cool things that you can make in auto build that use very few zononite and will help you around the depths and actually on the ground level a lot. And now this is another thing that I'll keep just under the depths part. It could be really its own tip, but I'm going to show you how to make this really cool like speeder bike thing. It's basically just 2 fans and a control module, but It's a very specific setup, so I actually created a video showing how to do it. So we'll cut to that video right now. Now, actually, I think they call this a hover bike in a lot of the videos that I've seen where they show how to build this, but I like to call it a speeder bike because, you know, it's like this, you know, Star Wars thing, and it's a lot more fun that way. Essentially, you take one of these fans, flip it upside down on the ground. Make sure you're doing this on flat ground, it's easier that way. And you take the control module and flip it back one like this. And then you just basically line it up to the edge of the fan here, and you have to snap it on. And you gotta be really careful. In this video, I'll show me doing it wrong by accident a bunch of times, and you'll see the control module thing kind of go off at an angle, and you do not want to do that. As you see here, I shimmy a lot just to try to make sure it gets perfect, and there you go. It's pointing off to the left. So if you have this happen to you and you try to get on it after you've completed it, it'll just shoot off in one direction, and you won't really be able to use it. So you want to make sure to keep it as straight as possible, and you want to make it perfectly straight, or at least as close to straight as possible, because then you'll get very little variation on which direction you head in. Now, as you can see, I messed this up a ton of times, but eventually I do get it right. And actually, this time that I did it, I made it actually much better than my original speeder bike that I've made, and that's just awesome because now I have this in my auto build, and I can keep making this one version that's the most accurate version that I've made. All right, now that we have the control module kind of connected to the first fan, you want to grab the second fan, spin it the same way so it's facing straight down, and you want to connect it directly to the front of this little control module thing. And when you attach it, it'll kind of slump back over onto the ground, and you'll see it's kind of like a little bike. It's the coolest thing. It uses very little battery when you're riding it, and it uses very little zononite to create with auto build. And as you can see, it kind of goes off in one direction a little bit, but you could fly around. It goes straight up. You can make it go forward. It moves pretty quickly. It's not as fast as some other vehicles, but because of the small amount of battery usage, it is incredibly useful. And if you have a lot of batteries like I do here, you can get pretty far in the depths. And something that I've experienced a lot is that things are much farther away than they seem. So if you create a map marker, you're like, oh, that's another light way over there. So you use the little binoculars and you create the map marker and you start heading in that direction. Even though it feels like it should just be like a 30-second walk over that thing, usually it's like a 10-minute run where you're constantly just climbing over stuff and like flying through areas, and you're just wondering like, how far is this thing? But yeah, things are really far, so creating this bike is really helpful. And of course, this is also really helpful on the ground level and in the sky because you can fly around anywhere with this thing. When you use auto build, it only costs 3 zononite to build. So if you have a bunch of that, you can just make this out of nowhere and it really won't cost a lot. All right, and the last and final tip of this video is you're gonna wanna find the Master Sword as early as possible. Now, the Master Sword isn't an unbreakable weapon. It does kind of run out of energy after a bunch of different uses, but it does recharge as you continue to play. And I wanna say it's maybe 20 or 30 minutes of like in-game time of constant movement, or at least it feels much less than that when you're playing, but it'll automatically recharge itself and it'll prompt on the screen saying that the Master Sword is recharged, and it'll go back into your inventory and you can just reselect it. Now, to find the Master Sword, you go through these quests where you find these really big landmarks. Essentially, they're these really big glowing kind of drawings in the ground. You can only see very well from the sky. And now there's a main quest for this, and when you find the main quest, you'll be automatically near the first one, and Impa kind of explains how to go about it, and you basically find the puddle that's on these things, and then it gives you like a little cutscene and shows you some of the story. And after you've completed all of these, and actually show one of them here, this one looks like the Master Sword. So I don't remember exactly where the dragon tear was on this one, but the dragon tear shows up at some spot on this drawing, and when you collect it, you'll get that memory. And then when you collect all of them, it'll reveal to you what happened to the Master Sword and where you can find it. Now, you're gonna need 2 full stamina bars to get the Master Sword, which is pretty easy if you've completed a bunch of shrines doing this, creating this big network. If you've gotten a bunch of these Lights of Blessing and increased your hearts and stamina, then it's very likely you've already gotten yourself an extra stamina bar, and this won't be a problem for you. And even if it is, you can just kind of go through a bunch more shrines and get some more Lights of Blessing and add more to your stamina just to get that increased. Again, you do need 2 full bars of stamina, so you need that extra full bar around your stamina in order to get this Master Sword. I'm not going to go ahead and explain too much more about the Dragon Tears because that would reveal too much of the main story, so we're not going to go ahead and do that. But that's my last tip of the video. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it, you go ahead and click on my face right here to subscribe. Otherwise, I'll see you on the next one.